Hello, hello. So greetings, yes, from Estonia, Tallinn, and yeah, I think these pronunciations were quite right. So greets back to TechBBQ audience as well. Today, I am very happy to present this panel. As said, together with Invest in Estonia and Trade Estonia, we are talking about this community movement that was born together with the crisis situation. We will talk about, yes, how this happened, but we will also take a little bit of a more, kind of narrow focus into how the startups and our success stories who are here today with us as well, how they started to work with the governments to make bigger change happen. So just to give you a little bit of a backstory to the viewers that might not know the full thing, what we're talking about here. When the crisis situation hit in March, we kind of here in Estonia obviously had to act as well. The crisis situation or the emergency situation was announced, and it was a Thursday. I remember it quite well because we already started chatting in our team what we can do. And on Friday morning, we already had the idea that we need to launch a hack straight away. So I need to introduce myself as well. My name is Kai. So yes, I'm the organizer of the global hack and the hackathon movement, but also I'm building a government accelerator called Accelerate Estonia. So this is where we are working every day for the kind of culture that startups and governments need to kind of come together, start this collaborative model to actually make big change happen. And today I have here, as I said, the Global Hack success stories. So the founders that came together through this hackathon to actually find solutions to very acute problems that this global crisis has kind of put forward. So as already introduced, but I will come back to them. So Ieva is here. She's the co-founder of Acting Crisis, but she's not foreign to the startup ecosystem here in Estonia. She has been working with a startup called Clanbeat before, and she has a background in psychology and HR, and now moving to her next startup. So maybe you can, hello, first of all, obviously, and maybe you can say a few words about the startup that you're working on now.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. Nice to be here. And today I'm representing Act on Crisis, which is an objective partner to organizations helping to improve mental health. And with Act on Crisis app, employees can identify their emotional state, train their mind individually or with the professionals one-on-one, and based on gathered data, predict and prevent emotional imbalance in the future.
Thank you. And also we have Sten here. So the founder of MASC, like we were saying before, your very first endeavor in the startup world. So coming from a different background, hello to you, and maybe a few words as well from you. What is MASC?
Yeah, hi. So when the crisis hit, we built a system for the Estonian government to collect and analyze the data of stock and demand of personal protective equipment, such as masks, gloves, respirators. It has been in use since April and today used by the central government and around 300 public sector institutions that report their data through the system to the government. Among the 300 public sector institutions are all the hospitals as well. So the government is making all the decisions related to personal protective equipment within the crisis management using our system.
Very nice. So let's maybe again go back a few steps, and for me the experience was definitely different. Joining this hackathon or kind of initiating or creating it. So like I said, the crisis situation hit, we needed to act fast. Obviously, all we need to know what to do is hackathons. So we said, okay, let's get the tech community together. And firstly, we did a hackathon in Estonia, which was, like a team effort from all the stakeholders in the community to just put it together in like 6 hours. And we had amazing results, right? And things were implemented really fast. And then obviously we saw that, there is massive opportunity to do it on a global level, because the national hackathons happened all over the world, over 75 countries, kind of used our experience and did this locally. And then we needed to kind of bring this to a global level. And Ieva, very nicely, you said before that you didn't even realize what the scale of this event was happening, right? That you just wanted to join in and solve one of the issues that you saw. But when we kind of go back then to this moment where you decided to join this hackathon, so from a startup point of view, what was your kind of experience that you had joining the Global Hack?
I think at that point, many people were making fast decisions just to make a change in the current situation. And at least in our case, with the team, we actually gathered a week before the Global Hack and started working on this mental health topic to help people experiencing emotional imbalance during the global crisis. But joining the Global Hack was very impulsive without understanding how huge that was. But the call to action was very, very clear that, come on, let's join our force together and solve issues related to it. So there were so many people joining our group as well, just with their superpowers, whether it's in design or tech or psychology or very various fields. And we found ways to use those superpowers to solve the issue together.
I think it was a little bit similar to you, Sten, right? That friends got together and be like, yes, let's use our superpowers to kind of make a change.
Yeah, so we got a group of friends, started looking for the ways how we can help the government managing the crisis. It was just about the time when the Global Hack was inviting the teams to join. So it was a perfect timing to get the support from the team and the mentors and the people involved in the Global Hack as well. So it was a few days before the Global Hack, we realized there's a problem. We reached out to the advisor of the Minister of Public Administration that was taking care of all the personal protective equipment field. We validated that it really is a problem that we had defined. And the advisor said, yeah, if you're able to build a system that would fix the problem, we will arrange you a meeting with the minister you can introduce, and then the minister can decide if it's good to go ahead. So within 1 week, in 1 week after basically coming up with the idea, we had a meeting with the minister, and the minister said, yeah, it's good. We will implement it on a national level, and it has been in use since then. So this is, again, big thanks to the government officials as well, of giving the opportunity for the startups to help them to manage the crisis.
This is where I kind of want to get to, and what was my question filled with, for us, we're startup people, right? And we're ready to kind of jump on these solutions and just really act fast. And hackathons, in general, are ways to just find problems and test solutions very quickly. And now what we are bringing in as a stakeholder is the government, right? Which I think the general image is that it's slow and that it needs time, and we need to kind of see the limitations. But for us, and for me as the organizer of the Global Hack, I think one of the biggest success stories is that we managed to get the government to act really fast. There were moments that I was getting calls with or agreeing calls with the European Commission in let's talk in 20 minutes, and that was kind of the speed that everything was going forward. And for me, it was like a total, in any case, it was like a very positive experience. And that's why I kind of want to bring in now the question of, the government as a stakeholder in the whole thing. And then maybe this is, a little bit not maybe, this is the goal of our talk today as well, to kind of bring in this government stakeholder and show you as success stories and good examples of how startups can actually work with them. So maybe you can kind of elaborate a little bit on the image of governments and working with governments beforehand, and how it has changed while you have been building your startups.
Yeah, I mean, the perception of the government, of course, especially for the startups, is that it's slow, it takes time, it's difficult to find the right decision makers, they're not willing to innovate. To some extent, yes, it's a bit more complicated working with the public sector than it's working with the private sector, of course. But if you find the right way how to approach those officials, the decision makers, and you actually explain how the solution can help to increase the efficiency, decrease the costs, it's not impossible, and it's actually quite enjoyable as well, I would say.
Yeah. In our case, we were approached by public organizations wishing to do something with us regarding mental health of different municipalities, and I was really amazed how they were trying to find ways to find funds, even though it's usually planned years ahead, and there are so many like signatures needed to actually proceed some way. But in this case, in Corona crisis, I think also public sector moved a lot faster with all the digital signing that wasn't used before, at least in Lithuania, my country. And that was really amazing example how different municipalities were calling and are still calling, asking how can we do this together, and if we have these funds, for example, how can we reuse it in a way that it would be useful for you, but bring the solution to our small municipality, this innovative way. So I think government bodies, yes, they are like big and sometimes slow, but they also want to innovate in a way. And more younger generation starting to work in those government bodies that wish to have their own startup culture inside the public sector, for example. So I think it's a really good timing now as well to skip some steps due to Corona crisis and do startups together, not like startup and government, but see the government's smaller public bodies as sort of startup as well, because they want to do stuff differently as well. So.
Yeah, very much agree with that. We are not lacking talent in the public sector. That there are people working. Well, at least me with my Accelerate Estonia experience as well. Just looking through the ministry of people who are passionate about their field, looking for trends that are in the world, and actually ready to take on new ideas and experiments as well. That you can't really maybe usually do in the public sector. So for me, it's like, building a new culture. Like from one side, yes, we have this startup world, which kind of has this move fast and break things culture, which also I think is, if you want to actually make long sustainable change, it's not the right way to go. And then the government's coming from the legislative side, and actually, they can actually make big change happen. So, building this new culture is for me is one of the, kind of missions of the global hack movement as well. That yes, we can do it quickly, we can test these things out, but we actually need to make this longer term, bigger change, right? But maybe, from a startup's point of view, there are some kind of tips and tricks how we can work with the government. Is there something that we can kind of start as discussion points that you think startups should bear in mind when they are thinking of big things like mental health, for example, that they want to tackle this? So how to get this kind of little snowball rolling and all the stakeholders to come with you.
I think in our case, what made it easier was that from the very beginning, we partnered up with mental health organizations that already have a public positive image. So one of the first partners that we got were Lithuanian Psychology Association, and then a few others joined after them. So with these partners behind you from your field, not necessarily mental health, but access to government bodies is a lot easier because they already have their own relationship with those government bodies, and they can intro you a lot better. Or if you are writing yourself. It's not that you 3 friends or techie people or like a small company are trying to find a new relationship, but you actually come with this whole strong community that is specializing in the field. So after writing to some government bodies myself and mentioning that our partners are these alleged organizations, I got responses and easy access to higher level of representatives, let's say. So I think it's together.
You have to have some kind of reference points before you kind of just jump in and say, we have 2 guys in a garage coding something.
Yes, actually, I do believe that together we can do more. So if you find partners that are already focusing in the field, you can actually like co-create stuff together. So that, at least in our case, it was a really, really good move, I think. And still is, because of our partnering organizations and leaders, like leaders of those partnering organizations signing the petition, our Ministry of Health reconsidered and released extra funding for mental health on a national level. So it was due to us being stronger together with partnering organizations.
Yeah, the key is definitely finding right people, having the right connections that help to make the introductions, or that will be sort of your extended sales team within the huge public sector administration. And on top of this, also the approach is quite different than working with private businesses, in a sense that if you're trying to sell something to the private company, you will focus on how it decreases the costs, how it increases the profits. But if you're going to introduce something to the public sector, it has to be more of a becoming a partner, helping to increase the efficiency. It is like a different approach. And also, you don't really go as a startup guy with a hoodie and all this slang talk, but you really have to present yourself properly, wear a suit, having like not using any slang. I mean, these sort of tips are, I think, quite important, that you have to know your audience as well.
It's a very good point, knowing your audience, because as you mentioned, for businesses, it's like costs and efficiency, the value that they see the most. But with public sector, they also see value in efficiency, not costs that much, but also for the value for the whole society, let's say. So yes, in our case, we focus really on a positive social change within the mental health in our whole society. So that's a good point. Yeah, understanding the value of a different value of your different customers.
I also think it's a good point. In Accelerate Estonia, we call them evangelists, that you need to find, your people inside the system, so to say, that that will kind of push your agenda forward, or, have that kind of bigger picture in their mind. So this is one of the points. But, on the other side, or the other side of the coin is kind of, can the government trust a private one service, right? Like how can they put all their citizens, or the clients, and our national citizens, to just trust this one private service? Is that something that you have had to tackle with your startups?
I mean, it's they need to trust the people behind the system, and the creators of the system are the people that have to create the trust. If you're building a digital solution, it doesn't matter if the client is private sector, public sector. You still have to keep in mind the security issues, the cyber security, the quality of the tools to protect the data. But either to make sure that the client on the other side is willing to trust your solution, it depends on the people. And I think this is quite the same for both public and private sector, I would say, from my experience.
That's true. But as you mentioned, public sector is already thinking about like very, very bigger scale. When in comparison, private sector can actually test with a smaller group or a department, for example, and risk less. But for public sector, we immediately think about like huge amount of of users. And when it comes to data, in our case, mental health is a very sensitive subject. So we value anonymity, and this is something that we are actually seeing the biggest value of our partnership with either private or public sector. But for public sector, actually, they have some rules that they cannot, how to say, they cannot do everything completely anonymous if the public money is used. There has to be like the end user with a name, surname, and like personal number. So this is something that we are still in process of tackling, to be honest, how to ensure anonymity to the end value receiver, and at the same time fulfill the official requirements of public bodies who are funding the solution being implemented.
Yeah, and I understand that your kind of general experience is very positive, right? Like we can say kudos to the Estonian government, to the Lithuanian government. But, you know, I know that it has taken you time and you have to kind of had your own challenges throughout the way. So my question is whether there are alternatives as well. Do you see that, you know, before you can actually knock on that high level door, are there some other things that you can do?
In our case, we started by government bodies, trying to find partnerships with them. But at some point, actually, just before starting to work with them, they actually asked if there's somebody whom you are already working with. And we did not have them at first. So actually we slightly changed and moved to private sector to have somebody working with us and testing. And this is where we came back to the public sector with already case study of like this organization tested, and we moved through all the legal requirements within that organization. So it built trust to public sector as well, that we already had a private client. So I think that's the alternative way to find someone trusting you and working even the smallest body, but building trust on top of that. And after having the public body, you can go back to the private sector as well, saying, look, public body is already trusting us, and we made them like see the value behind this. So how about doing this here as well?
Yeah, that's true. One element of building a trust is having a proper track record, having previous projects that you have been doing. And there are these sort of huge tech companies that are building systems for the governments and have been doing these for past 25, 30 years. So as a young startup, to go and tell the government that I'm able to do something and I'm able to do it better than those companies that have been doing it for a while, that's a challenge. And without that track record, it might be quite complicated to go directly to the top, to the decision maker and say, hey, here's the solution, please. So yeah, you have to play around. You have to get this this one person that everybody trusts, that would believe in you and in your product, and then it's easy to actually use this person as your support. So now one thing is working with your local government. For us, with the Estonian government, the Estonian government is really willing to innovate, making the decisions fast, even though there are endless opportunities to come up with new solutions here as well. But now moving out from Estonia is another challenge, and then you have to go through all those things that we discussed. You have to find again local partner, new the people from the local market that are able to make the connections, and then you just have to hope that you don't lose to any of the big tech companies on the local market.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge definitely for the small teams. But what gets you motivated then? So we had the global hack. Yes, everything moved so quickly, but obviously what happened after that, that has been, you know, something that we need to go back to our normal lives, and then the crisis is still going on. So, you know, I know that you've had your own journeys getting where you are right now, but what is it that motivates then you to move forward? What are the headlines in 5 years that are going to mention MASC and that are going to mention Act on Crisis?
I think making a change And really, we are in this very different timing right now where the startup or the understanding of a startup is changing a bit. Before the crisis, startup thinking of startup mindset was all about the scalability, making those everyday life things a bit more convenient and growing really, really, really fast. So right now, due to the change situation, there are so many opportunities to actually help the government to support the society as a whole by innovating it. So I think this is what is motivating, to be in a second wave of new thinking of doing startups in collaboration with governments.
In our case, is seeing the traction in public and private sector, because we openly called to all organizations who wish to have some sort of partnership. We didn't even have like very concrete one, but they're calling back, trying to find ways to really make a change in mental health for the society, and predict and prevent emotional imbalance, anxieties, and even like more serious mental health issues. So seeing organizations being interested and also investors getting interested in investing in this, as like seeing huge potential in the future, even after the pandemic, is something that keeps us going every day, even though we are sometimes really tired or or get stuck at some point trying to deal with like bigger bodies. But yeah, really seeing people seeing the value in your solution is the biggest motivator.
But what do you see on the other side? So we've been talking about, us like looking from the startups view that, there is benefit to work with the governments. We want to make bigger change, so we need to build this culture. But from a government's point of view, what should they change? What is it that, we've obviously in Estonia, we built this Estonian business system where you can come in as a resident or start a visa. You can, start a company in a few minutes, basically. So, we have all these services, but what do you think in this mindset or this culture thinking, what should change from the government's point?
I think they should have their own like startup teams inside, and dedicated funds for unpredictable yearly initiatives. So something that they would be scouting as investors, would be scouting for new ways to innovate, and maybe collaborate with some extra startups, or sometimes build their own random ideas that would have their own hacks inside, for example. They could actually do that. Then we see some like rising startup-y departments in our municipality. So I think more and more municipalities should pick this up, the hack way of seeing things from time to time, even after Corona crisis.
I love that Ieva just described everything that Accelerate Estonia is doing. So yeah, well, we can and we are proud of what Estonia is doing, right? But as you said, the minute that you want to go global, the mindset from other governments has to change as well, right?
Yeah, I have really no recommendations for the Estonian government, because they are doing, or the public administration, especially those that are these sort of organizations like Accelerate Estonia, they're moving ahead with right steps, building this sort of bridge between startup and the public sector. Of course, can always be more open and more easy with all the tender processes, but in general, I think that the steps made are right.
So our time is up, but I hope that this talk has sparked and inspired at least a few startups and a few governments to kind of look how we can collaborate to make big change happen. I know that you guys are, just starting out, even though the global hack has gone already, but big steps are ahead of you. So I know that Act on Crisis is actively looking for investors. MASC, you're going step by step to global markets, right? So I wish you good luck on this, and thank you from our side as well. And back to TechBBQ.